I'm Angela O'Hara, and you're listening to the True North Country Comics podcast.
Welcome to the True North Country Comics podcast, dedicated to promote Canadian comic book creators and supporters. It's March 29th, 2021. I'm John Swinimer. If you want to drop me a line, you can contact me at john@truenorthcountrycomics.com. On this episode, I chat with Angela O'Hara about the Moonstone Diadem. This podcast is available on Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts, and it's also available on the True North Country Comics channel on YouTube. I invite you to like and subscribe. Angela is a freelance fantasy artist and illustrator based in London, Ontario. She also works as a lead artist in the game industry, with experience creating concept and production art for casual games, as well as cover art credits on tabletop, role-playing games, and books. Angela created her original fantasy comic, The Moonstone Diadem, following a very successful Kickstarter campaign. One of her favorite pastimes is painting beautiful fantasy characters and environments in luminous, bright colors, with her main inspiration being the video game World of Warcraft. So, without further ado, here's my chat with Angela O'Hara about the Moonstone Diadem. Angela O'Hara, thank you very much for taking time to chat with me.
Thanks for having me.
I appreciate your time. What I normally do to start off the interview is ask the creator about their first comic book. So I'm wondering if you remember, what was the first comic book that you read?
So I was in high school and I was really into Sailor Moon. And the local comic store carried a magazine called Smile Magazine that was aimed at like teen and preteen girls. And it had Sailor Moon manga, Magic Knight Ray Earth, and a couple other stories. And it was like a monthly magazine that came out. And I just got addicted to manga through that magazine and just never really put comics down after that.
And so you kept looking for manga after that?
Oh, yeah, I was hooked. Once I realized that there were comics out there that were aimed at my own demographic as a teen girl at the time, I just couldn't get enough.
Cool. Good stuff. So I'm wondering, as an artist today, who influences your work?
There's a couple of different artists. I would say Jen Bartel is probably my biggest influence. She's done a lot of illustration work, comic work, like even designing shoes for different companies. She's done a ton of stuff, and she's done it by knowing what she wants, producing the art that she personally loves and wants to do, and following that and treating that as like her guiding star. Like, what do I want to make in the world? And so that like really resonated with me as like, what do I want to do? And what do I want to do in my life is I want to make what I want to see in the world. So that's kind of, yeah, it felt really profound to me that she made a successful career out of doing that and that people resonated with that. So that's who I really look up to.
Absolutely. Yeah, she's definitely making her mark in the industry today. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Cool. Good. So what we're talking about here today is your latest project, the Moonstone Diadem. So I wonder if you could tell me a little bit about the story for folks who are not familiar with it, and maybe the origins of the project as well.
Sure. So it's an original fantasy comic. It's a one-shot. The story itself is 31 pages long, and it tells the story of two princesses. It's like an all-ages romance between two princesses, a human princess and an elven princess. So it tells the story of Princess Georgina, who discovers that the crown jewels of her kingdom, known as the Moonstone Diadem, was actually stolen from the elves and originated from the Elven Kingdom hundreds of years ago. So she gets together with her friend, the Elven Princess, and decides to steal the crown and return it to where it came from to try to right the wrongs of the past and make a way that they could be together in the future. So yeah, it's like a romance, but it's an all-ages romance and a queer story.
So
very important to me.
Were there any inspirations for this particular story?
Yeah, it kind of is a project that ended up becoming a comic book as it evolved. So originally, the project was going to be just a series of ink drawings for Inktober. That's why it was going to be 31 pages long.
Right.
So I was toying with ideas of doing a drawing series instead of just separate drawings for Inktober, and decided I wanted to do something with a narrative hook told throughout 31 drawings. And so I started to develop, like, what could the story be? Could it be like about a crown that goes on a journey? Maybe there's princesses involved because I love princesses, and it could be a queer romance because that's what I would want to see. And then the story just kind of got away from me as I developed it. Like the characters kind of became whole people, and I really wanted to tell their story right. So I made a decision that I couldn't do the story justice by just doing it as a series of individual drawings. It would have to be a comic so that I could do the dialogue, the action scenes, everything, all of the emotion, and really just put everything into it. So it kind of turned into a comic slowly over the course of months. And then I did it for Inktober, which was kind of ridiculous of me to do that. I planned it the best I could. I did all of my storyboards, character designs, pencils, everything in the summer before October 2019. Mm-hmm. So right. Then all I was doing in October was the actual inking of the pages and posting them online one a day. But that was still completely ridiculous, and I would never do that again. It was just absolutely backbreaking work. But at the end of it, I had a complete story that I'd put my entire soul into and decided to self-publish and put it out there.
Yeah, and so it all worked out. So there you go. You got some great book out of all that effort.
I did.
Tremendous, good stuff. I want to switch gears a bit. I understand you're also the lead artist at Big Viking Games, and that's definitely very popular. So I'm wondering, do you have a preference for creating comic books or for creating games?
I consider them pretty different. So the work that I do for my day job is working on a Facebook game, like a casual, decorating and collecting game. And a lot of it is it's very there's a lot of creativity to the work, but it's also very a very collective project. So it's not that I just go to work and draw whatever I want. Everything, we're tracking what do the players want. We're trying to cater to them as much as possible to give them a good experience. Whereas when I'm making a comic by myself, it's just me, and I can put a lot of myself into it. And for better or for worse, it's all me in there. So I feel like doing the job of working at a gaming company is so different from the work that I put into the comic that I don't know. I would consider them completely different.
Okay. Well, that's very fair. But I'm wondering if there's anything in the game creation process that lends itself to comic book creation.
Yeah, I would say a lot of the skills that I've learned in working on games, as far as productivity tracking, has really served me well in making the comic. Just estimating the amount of time that you're going to spend on a task and then tracking that amount of time is something that we have to do in the games industry to make sure that we're getting a return on investment on the work that we're putting into what we're doing. So having that kind of thinking to make sure to put in the effort that's appropriate to the results is kind of something that really served me well and helped to keep me on track so that I could get through the process of making the book without completely burning myself out. There was a little bit of burnout for sure, but I got through it because I had that kind of that thinking in mind.
So it really hones your regiment when it comes to being very strategic about what you're trying to accomplish, I guess.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Maybe we could talk a bit about the tools you use to create your art. I'm sure that there's some similarities in when you're making games and making comic books, but I wonder if you could talk a bit about those tools that you use.
Yeah. So as far as project tracking goes, I use Trello, which is a free task management software, so that I could, when I finished a task, I could get that dopamine hit of hitting the checkbox and seeing it, moving the tickets to complete. As far as art tools go, I used traditional India ink on Bristol paper for all of the pages, and then I scanned them in and colorized them, did all the text in that in Photoshop.
That's surprising. I would have thought that, being a game creator, that you would have used digital tools from the outset. But it sounds like you're more of a traditional / digital, I guess.
I've always had an affinity for ink, and I just find that my line work tends to look nicer when I do it traditionally. That said, I do inks digitally sometimes, but if I was going to do a whole book, I wanted to do it the way that I know how to do it best. It was tough, but enjoyable.
Sure, absolutely. So then you scan it in and you do Photoshop, I guess, to get all the colors proper and that sort of thing?
Yeah. I used digital watercolor paints for most of the book. just coloring them in painstakingly, one page at a time for months.
Very good. And you said that you self-published. Was that a unique experience? Is there so many lessons learned that you could pass along?
Oh, yeah, I learned so much. I was really lucky that I have a friend, Derek Loftman, who is quite an established artist as an indie comics and an indie art book creator. So he recommended a print shop to me out of Quebec that does a really beautiful work. So I was able to work with them, and it was Marquee Printing. And they did just an amazing job working with me on the book. But I learned like so many different like skills in putting this book together that I never would have imagined, like how to use InDesign, how to make a video trailer for the Kickstarter, how to do all the marketing, how to run a Kickstarter. Like these were all skills that I did not have going into it that I had to learn on my own. So I was really grateful for people like friends that I had who had some of those skills that I was able to get their advice on. It was definitely like a lot more went into it than I would have even imagined.
I bet. So now that you have all that behind you, my next question is, what's next for you? Do you intend to do another Kickstarter or another follow-up to your book?
I would like to, and I do have some ideas for what I would like to do with the story, but I'm taking it easy a bit and working on my illustration skills right now. And I'm just going to see where it takes me before I decide to take the plunge again. I think like going through such a tough period of like working on this so consistently for months and months and months, I need to take a break and work on some other things, and then we'll see if I'm drawn back in.
Oh, very good. Very good. So that being said, where can people find out more about yourself online, and more importantly, where they can buy your book?
Yeah, so I'm on Twitter. My Twitter handle is Felmina Games. It's FELLMINA Games. And then you can read the whole story actually for free on Tapas. If you look up the Moonstone Diadem on Tapas, I have the black and white version available. The color version you can purchase at felmina.bigcartel.com. I have a shop, and I'll be selling copies through there. Or I just discovered that I've been accepted to Toronto Comic Arts Festival, so I'll be selling it through them as well when they have their festival, I believe, in May.
Thanks to Angela for the chat. You can discover more about Angela on Twitter at Felmina Games. That's FELLMINAGAMES. And online at artbyangela.ca and felmina.bigcartel.com. And thanks to you for listening to the True North Country Comics podcast. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to and like this podcast on Apple Podcasts. And please leave a good rating. Also check out the TrueNorthCountryComics.com website and follow along on Twitter at True North Comics. True North Country Comics is now on YouTube. Please like and subscribe to that video channel. Please send your feedback to John at TrueNorthCountryComics.com. Thanks again for listening, and come back soon for another episode. Bye for now. True North Country Comics Podcast is copyright True North Country Comics, copyright 2021.